Great. So we've looked at a few things there. Now, any other tips or tactics that you...
There's my personal favourite. There's
Go on then,
anchoring.
let's have a look.
Now, the downside of anchoring is that you do have to rehearse it a lot.
Okay.
But once you've rehearsed it, it's immensely powerful. Okay. Now, I want you to think for a second, Dave. I want you to think of something that you do frequently and regularly that just chills you out and makes you go, ah.
Okay.
All right. So
Yeah.
maybe it is getting home and seeing your pet dog or whatever. Okay. For many kids, it's when they see their front door. For me, it used to be when I learned this exercise. It was when I turned the corner and I could see my house, and I could see houses where friends lived, and I could see the beech trees on the other side of the road, and I could see my house, and I just felt myself going, ah, and chilling out. Okay. Call that your arm moment, and just put that in a box for a second, and I'll come back to it.
Okay.
Now, I want you to think now of the work of a guy called Pavlov. You come across Pavlov's dogs?
Yep.
A lot of people are familiar with the story of Pavlov. In order to get the dogs to salivate, he rang a bell.
Yeah.
And when he did that was every time the dogs naturally salivated, so when he fed them, he rang a bell. So feed the dogs and ring a bell, and you do that over and over and over until he conditioned the dogs, he trained the dogs, so that reflexively, whenever he then rang the bell, they salivated, even if he wasn't feeding them.
Yeah.
Okay? It's called a Pavlovian reflex, or a conditioned reflex, or a learned reflex. Now, I'm sure people can see where I'm going with this, because saliva is a cocktail of hormones secreted into your mouth. Okay? And the things that make you go, ah, the things that happen in your ah moment where you go, ah, those are feel-good hormones. Okay, so just like when Pavlov fed his dogs and rang the bell, and that ringing the bell is called an anchor in the jargon, what I want you to think about is something that you can do whenever you have your ah moment.
Right.
Okay, the equivalent of Pavlov ringing his bell whenever you have your ah moment. And if you do that for day in, day in, day in, day out, day out, day out for a while, eventually you get to the point where you can recreate your ah moment a little bit just by doing your version of Pavlov ringing the bell.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't have to be ringing a bell, of course. It should be something that's subtle enough to mean that you can do at work whenever you're feeling stressed.
Yeah.
So my trick, for example, is to rub my thumb over the inside of my wedding ring. Now, normally I don't recommend that people rely upon a physical object, because Murphy's Law being what it is, at some point you won't have that physical object. I'm happy to break my own rule here, because I never take my wedding ring off. I've always, I sleep in it and all of that kind of stuff. I always have my wedding ring on. So I'm quite happy to break my rule on that particular occasion. But another friend of mine, for example, digs the two fingers of her, middle fingers of her palm, into the mound at the bottom of her thumb. And there's stories of professional speakers and so on doing all kinds of things before they go on stage just to cool their nerves down. It can look, if you're not careful, it can look like superstition. Yeah. Do you do something before you go on stage? Yes, I always turn around 3 times and touch the floor, which is clearly it's a superstitious nonsense. But if you have trained yourself properly, far from being superstitious nonsense, it becomes a scientifically validated Pavlovian conditioned reflex to make yourself feel better. Now, the upside of this technique is that it's tremendously powerful. The downside of the technique is it does take a lot of setting up. You've got to practice it for a long time before you can use it.
Okay, so just to break that one down, because as you say, there's a couple of stages and it's going to take
Yep.
practice. First of all, identify your ah moment, your
That's it, yep.
relaxation, and what you're saying is that's something that you routinely experience, or maybe on a daily basis. You return home, or you take the dog out, or whatever it is. Something that just makes you go.
Yeah, that's the one.
So you
first glass of wine in the evening or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not going to encourage my to do that every day.
Fair enough. Fair point.
I know what you mean. So a daily thing that makes people go and relax.
Yep.
Then attach a behaviour, whether it's something like that, or as you say, touch a particular finger or that. So attach that. So when that ah moment is occurring, repeat the physical behaviour. Is that right?
That's it.
And then practice that each time you have that experience, so that it becomes rooted.
That's it.
And then with that practice, you'll then be able to bring about that feeling by simply repeating that after time.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. So
it takes a while, but when you've got it, it's tremendously powerful. I know some really high-powered people in really high-stress jobs that that swear
Yeah.
that is the way that they stay on top of what they're doing.